Hi everyone and welcome to the Empowered You podcast. I'm Chavi Israel, your host, speaking to you from Sydney, Australia. After October 7, I found myself in uncomfortable situations, not sure how to respond or navigate. That's why I created the Empowered You, first an organization and now a podcast to equip you with the knowledge, skills, and tools surrounding Israel and your Jewish identity. In each episode, we'll explore various topics from multiple perspectives so that you can feel informed, empowered, and proud of who you are. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Hello, Asaph.
How are you?
I am good. It is so amazing to have you. And you've traveled all the way from Cairns.
Yep.
Just to be here, not only, for this interview, but did you come?
I came specifically for the event on Sunday.
Firstly, I want to thank you for coming all the way to Sydney for the event. It was a really successful event. People have already started listening. I just put it up on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And people are so inspired by these ordinary, extraordinary Aussies like yourself. Truly, we're going to get to your whole story soon, but I just want to say thank you. And I want to know, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born and raised, your family background?
I was born in far north Queensland, a little bit southwest of Cairns. I was born to a Christian family. My mum was from New Zealand, and I enjoyed a good life, really, when I was young. I had access to the great outdoors, as they say. I had the opportunity to experience what North Queensland has to offer, which is a lot of swimming and camping, fishing, things like that. My childhood was reasonably uneventful. I obviously didn't spend my entire life in Queensland. I spent many years in Sydney. I've spent a lot of time actually in this area. I used to go to Bondi Beach 3 times a week when I was younger. So, yeah, not far from where we are now.
How come you came to Sydney? Just
to do my apprenticeship. There's more work opportunities here than in the north. So I came to Sydney to do my carpentry apprenticeship, which I did in 2004, I think. And then I stayed in Sydney for more than a decade building.
Oh, amazing. So you are a builder.
I'm a licensed builder. I have projects that I'm working on in Queensland currently.
It's so funny because I have you saved in my phone as Asaph the builder. That's how I know you as.
That's a funny story, actually, because I used to work in Sutherland for a childcare organisation. They had quite a number of childcare organisations, and I used to do maintenance work for all their childcare, and they used to have me as Bob the Builder. But when I went and worked there, I said, my name is Asaph, and they said, okay, we're going to call you Bob. We're going to call you Bob the Builder because all the kids know Bob the Builder. So,
yeah. Amazing.
So that's me.
That's you. And your parents, where did they get the name Asaph from?
Okay, so Asaph, and this is actually a serious issue because it doesn't matter what you say. Even during, like last night, I did mention it in the speech, and then afterwards, 4 people came up to me and said, "So, how did you get the name Asaph?" I say this in every speech that I've done, and every time I've talked to people, and they say, you have an Israeli name, and I said, well, actually, it's a Bible name. It comes from the Bible. So I figure any name that's in the Bible will probably be used by a Christian as well at some stage. I can't imagine I'm the only person who's non-Jewish that has that name. I could be, but I doubt
Is it from the Old Testament?
It is. So you'll find them in the Psalms. Some of the Psalms of David are also Psalms of Asaph. Also, there's quite a number of places where there is Asaph in there. It is a very difficult name for Australians. Like a lot of Australians don't get that name. I don't know of anyone in Australia who had my name, but I'm sure there was some other non-Israeli. Yeah. So I had difficulty growing up. People couldn't pronounce the PH. And
so how the Asaph?
They'd say Aspar and all sorts of weird combinations in between. Yeah.
Well, welcome to my life. My name is Chavi.
Yeah.
Chava. Adam and Eve from the Bible. So Eve's name in Hebrew is Chava. Yeah. So I'm very used to Chava, Chavi.
Yeah.
But my coffee.
CH.
Yeah. My coffee name is Ava when I just can't be bothered with. I'm just like Ava. No one questions that. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm thinking Asaph, if it's connected maybe to Joseph, or the idea of the root word of Asaph maybe is to add or increase.
Now, I've asked Israelis this, and some Israelis disagree, but other Israelis do agree. Asaph comes from, It comes from the same root word as Sophia, actually. And some people will say no, but if you research it, you'll find it is. The root word comes from Suf. The Sufis used to be wise men of the East, and the Sophia means wisdom. And so Asaph means a collector. The name Asaph means collector, someone who collects things. And they say someone who collects wisdom or knowledge is wise. So that's where it comes from, Sophia. So it's a collector of wisdom. So it comes from, so the root word for Asaph is from the same root word as Sophia, which is Suf.
Suf.
So they used to, like I said, they used to have the Sufis in the East.
So interesting. Look at that.
Well, that's what I believe it is. And again, some Israelis agree. Other Israelis say it's from this other.
Whatever.
In the kibbutz, I have no problem fitting in as a Asaph because there's like 3 or 4 Asaphs. My next door neighbor was an Asaph, and I wrote in this my original presentation, which was pages and pages long. So in the kibbutz, they're units. They're like joined, what you'd call terrace houses here almost, but they joined units together. Anyway, next door to us, where I was staying, is another Asaph, and he's part of the security team. And often someone would come to the door and yell out Asaph. We'd both come out the door together and go, yes. And he would, and then he'd go, no, not this Asaph, this Asaph, There's tons of Asaphs in Israel. Such a common name. It's crazy. I never knew that, by the way. I didn't realize it was such a common name.
So, and you have a Christian background. Are you practicing?
I'm a Christian. I've always had a strong belief in Christianity. I have a firm belief that Christianity and Judaism see eye to eye on a lot of things, on most issues actually. Obviously, there's some differences, but we come from the same root. Like Christianity honestly comes from Jewish roots. And so we share the same prophets, we share the same scriptures, we share so many things. And so I was brought up with a respect as not only as a sister religion, but also with the understanding that everyone is a sacred individual, a sacred human being.
Created in the image of God.
Created in the image of God, that's right. I have explained to a lot of people is that Christianity and Judaism, they celebrate life. And we celebrate life. In Christianity, we celebrate the idea of redemption of life. In Judaism, the toast is l'chaim. It's all about celebrating life, Same in Christianity, we celebrate life. We celebrate this idea of renewed life and all that sort of stuff. Islam doesn't share that. And again, this is going to get political now, but Islam does not share that. They don't share the same value on life that we share. And because of that, we have very differing views, really. People say, and I've got good friends who are Muslim, and they'll say, we're so similar and that sort of stuff. But in actual fact, I don't believe we're that similar. Like I said, I believe that Judaism and Christianity are far similar because we celebrate life and we respect life and we have a high value on life, the sort of value that Jewish people place in life. When I was in Israel just recently, I stood on the roadside when the Bibas family went past on the intersection to Erez, and I was holding an Australian flag. I think I was the only person in Israel holding an Australian flag. But the thing is, the presentation the other night, which I agree this government is terrible with a lot of things, but it's the government we have, and we do need to work with that government. We need to, instead of shut them down, we need to reason and I think show reason why they should be supportive of the Jewish people and not just throw rocks at them. When I stood on the side of the road, I realized, that these were people, real people, the Bibas family. And it's a terrible thing because when they were taken hostage, they were in very good condition. They were not injured by explosives or anything like this. So they were murdered. And yet their bodies were they were swapped for living people, and that's the sort of dignity that the Jewish people hold for humanity and humans, and I realized this, and people are standing on the side of the roads in honor for those people, and this is where you realize that the Jewish people place a high value on life. And that's a very similar thing to Christianity. And that's something which I believe we don't share with Islam. Islam does not have that same value on human life. And like I said in my presentation, I support anyone who's hurt. It doesn't matter what color or race or even religion they come from. I mean, I don't support religions of death. No, I believe Islam is a religion of death. It preaches it. It openly encourages it. And it's not something which I support. I can't support that. I was raised as a Christian, but I was raised with an understanding that the Jewish faith has a lot to offer Christianity. Actually, it has to, because we come out from there. And also because it shares the same values. So
Well,
that's
the
the reason.
Judeo-Christian values are the blueprint for Western democracy that we live in today.
And real civilization that works. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. We definitely value life.
Yeah.
100%. We value life so much.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like ironic when people say things like Israel is committing a genocide.
It's just funny because people talk about this genocide and they talk about this apartheid state. And it's just crazy. Having been in Israel for a year and lived there and understood, and I'm in the south. In the north, they're even more left-wing, as in they're more favourable towards the Muslim population and that sort of thing. So, and again, it is political and people do have to live together. So, there's a balance here anyway. But if you go there and have a look, you're like, they call it the apartheid state. The kibbutz that I live in, the groundskeeper, he's a Muslim. He's a Bedouin Muslim. He's worked there the whole time that I've been there. He's in Ramadan now, and he's employed by the kibbutz. He's a great friend of people in the kibbutz. I mean, I could say he's a great friend of mine, but personally, he doesn't speak a word of English, so our communication has only been in sign language. But the idea that it's an apartheid state is ridiculous. Like, if you go there and see, there's Muslim people, Muslim women, waiting at the bus station with other people. There's Muslim women in the colleges there. You go to the college, if you go to the Tel Aviv airport, there's so many Muslim, fully garbed Muslim guys, Muslim girls coming out of and this is, we're not talking even about Jerusalem. We're talking Tel Aviv, which is distinctly Jewish, actually. If you go back, I mean, you get Jaffa, obviously, which is more Arab, but it's ridiculous to call it an apartheid state.
And
It's
what about
crazy.
the genocide? How would you respond to that?
The genocide's it's absolutely crazy. Like, the Israeli government bends over backwards not to kill a single person, because, and I don't even think it's because of international pressure. I think it's because they do actually have some moral compass. They don't want to go in there and kill everyone. Funnily enough, I know people in Australia who've watched the, We Will Dance Again thing, and they're like, if that happened to me, I'd want to kill everyone. Like, that's the sort of feeling you get. Whereas people there, they're like, they don't want to kill everyone. They want their loved ones back. They want to be able to honour and bury the dead of their own families. And the people over here, I read an article today, which was written a few years ago, but it was spoken in the Parliament House just here. The reason I say that is because the Parliament House here in Sydney today was flying a Palestinian flag this morning. They've already taken it down.
I didn't even know that.
Well, I didn't. Yeah, well, I only happened to walk past it. That's why I knew it. And I took a photo of it and I sent it to someone from JNF. And I said, is this real? And I think it must have been. They had a news crew there as well. So they've taken it down now. Now there's the New South Wales flag flying there. But, it's disgusting how people talk about this. There's genocide, there's apartheid. I think a lot of people don't know what the word apartheid means, by the way. But also genocide, it's easy to quote things like genocide. And every time a person dies in this war, they say the word genocide. And it's like, wait a second, you can't say it's genocide every time a person dies.
This is war.
And
there'll be casualties, unfortunately.
There's going to be casualties.
Yes.
And there's going to be innocent people are going to die, for sure. That's how wars are. I don't know of a single war where innocent people didn't die. It happens. And I was privileged to actually listen to a speech by Elon Levy, actually in Sydney, last time I was here in October. And he laid it out very well, actually. The fact is that wars kill people, and they do a lot of damage to innocent people. But the question is, who started this war and why is it continuing to run? Hamas started the war. And the reason it's running is because Hamas is still there and they still have hostages. And for me, I tell a lot of people, it's very difficult for me to feel sorry for Palestinian women holding their children in front of like the CNN and the BBC who always have this propaganda against Israel. It's difficult to look at those people with any form of empathy because you know that just down the street, these people, their children are holding other people's hostages, other people's children hostage. And a few days ago, Israel cut off the power supply, the last remaining power supply to Gaza. The only country in the world that actually supplies its enemy with food and water.
I know that's
absurd. And then they cut the power, and the whole world is up in arms. As soon as Israel does anything, it's like it's collective punishment. It's going to go to the UN, whatever, and this sort of stuff. It's crazy. And then the war started just today, actually.
Yes. The
And so
ceasefire ended.
it did. And so I got a message this morning from a friend of mine, because I still have a team in Israel working now. I have a son in Israel. He's only 16 years old. And he says, good morning. It seems like the war is back. I'm meeting with the guys soon, so I'll talk to them about it. There are no specific instructions for the moment. Schools will be closed, and maybe there's going to be some rockets later, not too many, you know? And
maybe
there's going to be some rockets, yeah. And then I've got a very good friend, and she sent me a text from the school, and she says, it's all in Hebrew, so thank God Google translates things. But basically, it's just like this announcement saying, dear parents, good morning. Following the announcements, there's a cancellation of all the schools. Imagine if that happened here. Imagine if they just cancelled the school. Today, the schools are cancelled because there's going to be rockets flying, And I've got guys working in Nahaloz, and we've had to cancel that today too, because Nahaloz is only like 900 meters away from the fence, and Gaza is just like another 200 meters there. So it's within sight. And so we cancelled that this morning. My son was actually supposed to be working there today, like right now. And then I get another message saying the guys can't go to the dining room and sit at the dining room because you can't have gatherings more than 10 people in a place and that sort of stuff, to limit the amount of damage that might happen if a rocket does come through. And these are the sorts of messages which, again, I don't think people here realize, they keep talking about this thing about genocide and what Israel's doing. It's like, wait a minute. This morning, Israel, all these places where we are in the south, they've got to cancel their schools. Children have to stay at home so that they can run to their bomb shelters.
It's not normal.
First of all, it's not normal. And it's certainly not a genocide activity of Israel. I mean, these guys aren't armless, They're firing missiles back to start with, because that's what a lot of people think. A lot of people just see a Palestinian woman and an Israeli soldier. And you put two and two together. He's just marched in and he's killing her family. Never do you see like fighting men with guns and that sort of stuff in the background, because they're always in the background somewhere. It's not until you see a hostage exchange that all of a sudden they're parading through the streets with, we're a military force and we're this and we're that. And, we're basically defying everything that the UN says. And then as soon as Israel fires anything back, it's like,
back to playing the victim.
The victim. We're the victim, It's crazy. I would think that the rest of the world could easily see through that rubbish. Nobody actually likes the Palestinians. That's why none of the Arab countries will take them. Go back in history. They went into Jordan. They caused problems there. They got kicked out of Jordan into Lebanon. They caused problems there. Everywhere they go, they cause problems, even for their own Muslim friends and neighbors and brothers and people who are related to them in religion and ethnicity and everything. But they're not in the West. I don't think people are pro-Palestinian. They're anti-Israel. And there's a big difference between those two things. People think, why are they pro-Palestinians? These Palestinians are murderers. If it wasn't Israel, they would all be against Palestinians. They'd all be saying, these are murderers. These are murderers. Nobody likes a murderer. But it seems like people don't like Israel more. And I think that's crazy. Like, there's no reason for that. And people will say, because of this, because of that. There is no reason. I've been to the Nova Festival site. I've been to different kibbutzim and seen the horrors that happened there, And I can tell you for a fact, these people were some of the most supportive of the peace agreements between Gaza and Israel. These people who were butchered in their own homes, were the most supportive people. There was no reason to kill those people. It was not an IDF raid or anything like that. It was just plain brutality.
It's called Jew hatred. I don't really love using the word anti-Semitism because it was actually created by a real anti-Semite, William Marr in Germany. Basically, this BS science that said that the Jews were an inferior race. Mm-hmm. It very much precursor to Nazi Germany and their whole theory. But Jew hatred seems to be the strongest. Like you said, they're not pro-Palestinian, they're anti-Israel. 100%. And why are they anti-Israel? Because it's the only Jewish state in the world. That's right. And their hatred will prevail. Yep. And any excuse to hate on Jews. I know people say, well, there's a difference between, an anti-Zionist and being an anti-Semite. 90% of the time, I reckon it's one and the same. That anti-Semitism is now disguising itself as, I'm not an anti-Semite, I'm just an anti-Zionist. Would you agree? I'm with Elon Levy. He actually said there is no difference between the two, and I agree. Mm-hmm. There is no difference between Judaism and Zionism. There is no difference, really. That's true. And I believe that people do
separate those things. And to be fair, I think it's because a lot of people aren't educated on the use of the terms, and so they hear a lot of anti-Zionist comments in newspapers, and for some reason, Al Jazeera seems to get they have money. They have a lot of money, obviously, because they're from Qatar, and they seem to pay Google a lot of money to put their news at their head. So you'll see Al Jazeera news articles. Usually there'll be one or two of those for every one, CNN, and then you have to search like right down the bottom to find anything that's not completely left wing. But it's because they get a very loud platform, because you pay for it, I guess, through the Google ratings. They seem to be able to control a lot of what is being heard in the media, because if you read the other articles, you'll find out that a lot of them are quoting Arab sources and Arab media and stuff like that. They're not all Al Jazeera, but Al Jazeera seems to have a very, I would say, strong voice. And I blame Google for actually allowing that. Again, I'll probably be kicked off this now, but
and then they claim Jews run the world. Well, if we ran the world, I don't know if these things would be happening.
No,
we obviously don't run the world, everyone.
Well,
we
the funny thing is that I do believe that a lot of the attacks that happen on Judaism is because people are jealous. To be honest and to be fair, from a personal perspective, I know this to be a fact, that when you are doing something good and people cannot do the same, they generally, there is a certain amount of jealousy which ends up, you get attacked for. And what happens is that Jewish people, they band together, they help each other, they support one another, they'll employ each other, they'll form a community where they actually support one another. There is nothing wrong with that. That's a really good thing. I support that. I think that's a great idea. I think everyone should do it in their communities wherever. The problem is in the West, everything is about individualism, and so everybody is struggling so much. And it always looks like the Jewish people seem to be going well, and if they're going well because they help each other. But then they're going well, and so people get envious of them. They get greedy. If you understand the history of Israel, you realize that a lot of the land was bought with a huge cost from absentee landlords, Arab landlords, who were living in Cairo and Lebanon and all sorts of places.
I can see
like this.
you know all about the origins of the J&F very well.
Well, it's not just J&F. It's
started off as that.
Well, J&F
in the beginning
is enormous.
to buy land.
They own 12% of the land in Israel, right? I mean, a lot of that land is desert, but they own a lot of land for sure. But they weren't the only people who bought land.
No, for sure.
There was plenty of others who actually bought land and set up foundations for, but a lot of it was purchased legally, acquired legally. And if you go through the process, you realize that the Jewish people wanted to have a homeland. They didn't have one, and at the time they needed one because of what was happening in Europe and in the Arab countries. They did it legally. The British did a huge effort to stop them, and primarily because of Arab pressure, because of the oil. Everything comes down to money. And it's funny how they blame the Jews for money, but in actual fact, the rest of the world is worse, if you ask me. Like, honestly, a lot of the troubles that have happened now happened because of money. The Arab people, they were happy to have people come and buy their vacant swamp, desert lands, and they made them pay 10 times what they should have for the land. So they made money. And then the rest of the Arabs came in when things were actually, recultivated and said, that's ours. Well, I'm sad to say it's not. It's legally acquired. And on top of that, according to the UN partitions and everything like this, it did belong to Israel. And in actual fact, the British ended up taking all this. People should know the story. I think people should actually. People
don't know the history.
They don't know the history, and that's really sad, because the article that I just read today about this guy who stood up in Parliament House here and actually gave this speech, I think it was in 2019. It's a terrible thing. And he gets up and talks about all this stuff about how you Palestinians have a right to determination, the Palestinians have a right to be included in UN charters and under the protections, and the Palestinians have a right to this. And I'm like, if you understood the history, you realize they had that right. And then they attacked. They actually said, they said straight out, we are not following the UN charter. We are going to drive these Jewish people into the sea. Like, it's history. And this guy, he gets up and he says the Palestinians have a right to this, and they have a right to self-determination, and they have a right to defend themselves against the occupation. The occupation. And again, words do actually, they drive home a heavy meaning. So it is important to use the right words. I mean, in Israel, they say, we don't use the words West Bank. I still am guilty of that. But
Judea and Samaria.
Judea, Samaria, Transjordan, things like that. Because in actual fact, people use the word West Bank to mean it's the West Bank of Jordan, like it belongs to Jordan. So words do have a...
Words do.
They impact.
So we've gotten through so much, and I also feel it's amazing to just hear an Aussie speak the way you're speaking, because I don't hear many Aussies who actually are educated.
I don't think a lot of people know. That's the problem. A lot of people don't know.
So I want to just take a step back. First, I want to know, how did you even end up in Israel? And then, were you educated, or did you educate yourself? You grew up a Christian. I assume you were a Zionist, maybe?
I wasn't a Zionist because...
Oh, you weren't?
I support...
For me, by the way, Zionism is that you support that Jewish people have the right to live in their land and be able to rule over themselves.
I'm a Zionist then.
That to me is Zionism.
I'm a Zionist.
And I actually
100%.
think that word has been corrupted, where people are like, I don't want to be called a Zionist. And I'm like, wait, do you support Jewish people living in their homeland and ruling over themselves? That to me is Zionism. Also, for me, the Hebrew word Zion, Zion is not a modern day invention. The whole covenant, the Brit that Abraham had with God, it was that he would follow the Torah, the morals and ethics of the world, and God would give him a great nation and a great land, the land of Israel. Eretz Canaan, the biblical name. Zionism is a part of Judaism, as we established earlier on in this conversation. So for me, people are like, oh, I'm not a Zionist or whatever. You don't have to call yourself a Zionist.
It's not that. It's that I think that most people, and again, I can't speak authoritatively for everyone. I can only speak for myself. But I think that a lot of people think that to be a Zionist, you need to be Jewish. As in, I support Zionism. I support Jews who are Zionists, but I can't be a Zionist because I'm not Jewish, if you understand where I'm getting
Interesting.
at. And so when you say, are you a Zionist, I automatically say, well, no, because I'm not Jewish, Again, that could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
When you say, were you brought up a Zionist? No, I wasn't brought up a Zionist. I was brought up with the understanding that the land known as Israel belongs to the Jewish people by covenant. And that's the only reason you could actually say, there's a lot of people in Israel who are secular, a lot of people.
Yeah.
And sadly, I don't know how you can be secular and Jewish because God is so interwoven in the story. But anyway, you can be.
Because we're more than just a religion. We're also a family. We started off as a family.
I understand why there's a lot of irreligious people. Because what happened in Europe, a lot of people said, how did God just sit back and watch, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of Ashkenazis came to Israel and they said, you know what, we don't need God. And so they had this idea of self-determination, which I think is wrong. I mean, it's good to have self-determination, but for me, and it doesn't really matter where you sit because I'm just talking about myself, I think that God does fit in the picture. And
totally. I'm religious. So
I can tell.
Yeah. I do think that also these Israelis who are very, very secular, post-October 7th, it's ignited this renewed belief in God, which is quite ironic in a way. And I do think every human being has a soul. Every Jew has a soul. We call it a neshama. And it's this spark of godliness that it's just sometimes it gets covered up. But every Jew, I think that they do really ultimately believe in God. I don't know. Maybe that's me saying it as a religious person.
Probably not. I think it's very very nice. But anyway, the first time I went to Israel was after October 7th. So I've never been to Israel before. I have a healthy respect. I've got friends who are Jewish, Israelis, but I've never been to Israel before October 7th. So October 7th happened in January was my first visit to Israel. I didn't have any knowledge of the country at all.
Oh, so all this history that you've been saying is a recent
the understanding of the history?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
No, I understood this long before. That's why what happened on October 7th, I didn't go and research, who's right in this conflict? Is it the Israelis or is it the Palestinians? No. I understood this long before. And there's some very good documentaries, actually. There's a documentary called Relentless. And it talks a bit about this conflict as well. It's a very good documentary. If you're left-wing, you'll probably say that it's very biased. I think it's very honest. And after seeing what happened on October 7th, it's one of the things, but it's not the only thing. I had the opportunity when growing up to have an honest approach on these conflicts. And by honest, I believe there's not a lot of honesty outside at the moment. People cover up this and that and everything else. People are trying to believe that there's this some sort of golden thread or silver lining, they call it, in Islam. And I don't see it. I'm sad to say I don't see it, because if you look at the history of Islam, it is historically violent. It's violent against Jewish people. It's violent against Christian people. It's even violent against other Muslim people who aren't of the same clan. So that's why you have Sunnis and Shiites and everything in between. They will come across as being very united, and Islam is completely united. It's wrong. It's totally wrong. They're not united. And I believe that if you have an honest opinion about what's happened in the Middle East, the history, you'll be less left-wing, put it that way. I know the government was a lot left-wing, or a lot of the Israel was left-wing. And when I say left-wing, I mean this idea that you could live together, we could make peace if we flew flags and rainbows,
peace.
The Wall for Peace. I was there just last
I
week.
was also there.
I've been there a few times. Yeah, it's a fallacy. It's a fallacy when you realize.
Land.
Well, if you're honest, you realize these people do not want peace. They do not want, and they say it themselves. The funny thing is, I don't know why anyone doesn't just listen to what they say. They say it. It's not like hidden, and they even say it's not hidden. They say we declare openly, no peace with Israel. There is no peace with Israel. There's no negotiation, and there's no acknowledgement of Israel. And that's not just the Jordanian and Egyptian states. It's not just them. The Gazans did the same thing. They said basically, we will not negotiate with Israel. We will kill them. We're going to drive them into the sea.
Well, Hamas's charter clearly states genocide.
Yeah.
Towards the Jewish people, completely, outright.
And I know that Israel wants to work with the Palestinian Authority. But he literally says that, he would also kill the Israelis as well if he could. And this is what I mean by you have to live with them. You can't just go in there and kill everyone, even though it is very tough, but you need to make, and again, I don't want to tell the government what to do, but you do need to make decisions according to the facts of what's happening on the ground. And these people, they literally are telling you that they don't want to live with you.
That's true. The way it is. It's true. I try and never make generalizations like all Muslims, but I do think that you are right to say that.
The problem? The problem is people say this. They say, there's good Islam and there's bad Islam. The problem is, and I'll get my head chopped off for this, is going to tell them that there is no peace eventually with Judaism, okay? The problem is that the Quran actually teaches violence. Now, you can say that's not a problem. The problem is that every Muslim, devout Muslim, eventually attends a mosque. In the mosques, they get taught specifically hatred against Jewish people. So you can say, well, there's good ones and there's bad ones, but eventually everyone continues to hear this rhetoric about how Israeli people are pigs and they're dogs and all that sort of stuff. So what happens is that you get moderate Muslims who eventually become extreme.
Yeah.
They're getting taught it, and there's no escape. Because you can't go to a tolerant mosque somewhere. And so it's a problem. And again, I like there's this guy in the kibbutz that I come from. He seems like a great guy. And he seems like you could trust this guy. And he seems like everything's fine. But to be perfectly honest, I wouldn't trust him. And I wouldn't trust him because I know that during Ramadan, he has to attend the mosque and he has to listen to speeches against Israel. As they say in Israel, what to do.
You're a realist. I think that...
But you know why they'll continue to employ him? Because he's cheap. And this is where people need to understand sometimes it's important to actually look past the current cost of things and count the future cost of what's happening, And I'm not advocating for him to be unemployed. I wish him to be employed. I would say, and again, I'm going to get my head chopped off and I'm going to get kicked out of everything. But let me say, if it was my decision, I would employ an Israeli, a Jewish Israeli. He is an Israeli. I would employ a Jewish Israeli. Why? Because I support the people of Israel who are on my side. You could say in Australia, that's total discrimination. You would be taken to court straight away. That's it,
Yeah.
And it's total discrimination. The problem in Israel is it could cost you your life. Many of the people who were employed by the kibbutz were people who were informants of Hamas, who ended up being the ones who caused the most damage in the kibbutz. So you can call it discrimination all you like, but that cost some people their lives.
It's true. I know many stories also of
I've seen them in person.
Yeah, and of Arab Muslims who were part of not only in the kibbutzim, but worked in a makolet, like a little grocery store, in a very religious area in Jerusalem. And every day they would come and they would buy things from him, and he was friends with everyone. And then one day he just woke up and probably decided, or not woke up, probably going to mosque.
Went to a mosque, listen to it.
That's it. I feel like killing Jews. And he stabbed, I think, 7 Jewish people.
Yep.
And I remember seeing the images of the blood splattered all over the little grocery store. And this was someone who people trusted.
And loved.
And they loved him. And they knew his name.
Yep.
And they had this relationship. And this is one out of the, I don't know, hundreds of stories like this. So I do understand. And even when I was in Israel post October 7th, I'm waiting at the bus stop and I'm looking around, and there was Palestinians from East Jerusalem. They were like emptying the garbages and cleaning. And I'm waiting by this bus stop in Jerusalem all by myself. And I was like, what do I do if one of them has a knife? I'm dead. And these thoughts really do cross your mind.
Sadly, they do. In Israel.
They do. Because
Israel,
it's a
really cross your
reality.
mind. Yeah. Yeah,
and when you see someone driving really fast, you're like, wait, are they going to ram into me? Yeah. Because these
and
things
if they stop, are they going to get out and shoot you?
And they happen on a weekly basis. People don't realize that even throughout this war, way before this war, from the moment of Israel's inception, well, we know when Israel declared independence, next morning, 7 Arab countries attacked us. But then these terror attacks, it's not normal. And no other Western democratic country would ever allow. And I always think about, how did America respond after 9/11? They were in Afghanistan for what, nearly 20 years or something?
Whatever they were.
I don't know. And they weren't sending leaflets or any humanitarian aid or gas or
ringing
water.
People up and telling them we're going to.
We're coming, go. No, they weren't doing any of that. But the world, 9/11, I mean, that was a huge wake-up call for the Western world. But anyway, so what triggered you then to go to Israel? Were you not scared as an Australian want to go into a war zone? Like, what was your thought process?
No, I wasn't afraid to go in the war zone. What was my thought process? Wow. It was a while ago now. So, to be honest, I'm trying to think of the gentleman who says it's probably C.S. Lewis. What separates us between humans and animals is that animals, when they see danger, they will run away instinctively. Whereas humans will actually stand and make a choice. They'll make a judgment. Will I go towards danger for a reason, or will I run? But only humans will make that decision.
Yeah.
Animals won't do that. I'm a human being, so it's not like I didn't think about that. Like, before I left, I did write a will, expecting that if I did die, well, at least I wouldn't leave too much trouble at home. I did, put things in order at home so that things would continue smoothly without me being there. So it wasn't that I didn't consider death, but after seeing what happened, and I say this again and again, I feel like I repeat myself too many times, but after seeing what happened, it's difficult not to do something. For me, like, human beings should have empathy. They should be able to feel at least some of the pain that other human beings suffer. We live in communal societies and stuff like that. So, for me, again, it didn't matter that it was Jewish people, really. I mean, I have a great respect for Jewish people, but it didn't matter that they were Jewish. That's not something that crossed my mind. Or like, it's Israel, and they're being attacked again. I didn't think, it's Israel, I need to go there and help Israel. I saw people who were attacked and injured, and I thought, I'm going to go. I want to do something to help those people, because if that was me, I would hope someone would want to do it for me. Like, if I had been attacked like this, if I'm attacked, I would hope that there are other human beings in the world who would empathize and do something. So when October 7 happened, my first thought was, this is terrible. And I believe that I can do something. And I didn't know what at the time. And again, I'm a practical person. And I don't mind the challenge. Like, I've done many things which aren't construction-based. But I realized at the time, I thought, well, I know how to do construction. I know how to work. And I saw all these things. I'm not a medic or anything like that, but I was happy to go there and do whatever. I would have gone there and done fruit picking. But I knew that I had some skill in this particular area, and I thought I'll go there and see if someone wants help. And again, originally, I didn't think that I would go there and work alone. Not that I ever worked alone, but I thought I'd go there. My original email was like, I'm a builder. I'm happy to work with any building team on the ground. I've got guys who I can bring with me, other trades and stuff like that. And we've got different skills in different areas of construction. I'm happy to work with someone. When I got there, I realized 3/4 of the workers were all Gazans who were all on visas coming and working, being paid a good salary by Israel and returning home with it. They'd all been sent home because of the security situation, fully understandable. And they'd either been taken back to Gaza or the West Bank, wherever they came from, probably Gaza, because we were on the Gazan border. And all the other builders, and one of the guys who's building there, his son was also called up for reserve duty.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole country was on like a standstill in January because the country called up, I don't know how many 100,000 Milawim they call them, the reserve duty. And so there wasn't actually anyone doing anything. So when we started working, we were the whole team. We were the teim, you know.
So who's we? Did you pay for your own tickets? You know, you said you sent an email. Who did you send an email to? Like, I want to know
this
everything.
We could end up in trouble. So I speak some generality.
Oh,
I sent an email. I sent quite a number of emails to different people around the Gaza envelope, and I ended up with the contact details of the international relations director of Shah Negev. Her name was Maya, and she's not the current one. And I asked her. I sent an email to quite a lot of people, and I sent one to her, and I said, "Look, when I say we, I mean me, and I have a number of other guys who I will bring with me. I'll fly them there." And they're people who work for me in Australia.
And when you say you mean you were self-funding yourself?
Yes. Yeah. So,
do you know how insane you are?
Yeah, I know. Everybody says that. It's funny because everybody asks the same question. The first thing they ask is, and so who's funding this? And I'm like, why is that the most relevant question?
Well, I think it just it shows so much about who you are. For most people in this world, they see injustices occurring and they think, oh, that's a shame. But they don't actually act. And they don't actually do. You are a true upstander. And not only that, people will say, okay, let me reach out, but then no one will respond or they get rejected and they give up.
Oh, yeah,
and then not only that,
I've had plenty of that.
Not only that, they say, okay, I'm happy to help, but I need to make a living, or maybe you can contribute. Do you realize how insane you are in the most incredible altruistic way that you literally persevered, and then to the point that you're even willing to lay out your own money, your hard-earned money that could be used toward anything else in your life, to go to Israel and help?
That's true.
Do you realize that?
I didn't think it was crazy at the time because, like I said, if you actually see, if I have empathy for people, so when I see something like this, it truly is, it's stunning. Like for me, it was difficult for me to stomach, you know, it's a different type of evil. Like lots of people die in the world, you know, like there's wars happening everywhere. And
how did you see this? Was this on your social that was popping up? Because
I don't have social.
Because mainstream media, they weren't really showing gruesome stuff. So how did you even see?
I did have some Israeli friends.
So they were sending you the footage.
I did have some Israeli friends, and I never actually saw. I did see some pretty graphic footage actually, but not the stuff. I'm not on Telegram, so I didn't see the stuff that was happening on Telegram and that sort of stuff. I heard it. I heard about it all. And so the feed that I got would have been delayed anyway, although I did hear about it on October 7th. So feed was trickling into Australia at the time. I did see stuff which other people had seen and they'd forwarded it on to me.
I know they're your workers, but were they not a bit hesitant? Were they?
I asked them. I said to everyone, look, you don't have to come. Would you like to come? To be honest, all my mates who I brought, except for one guy, I never met him until I saw him in Israel, but he saw me speak down there, I think, or someone sent him the thing and he said he wanted to come.
So your mates, your workers,
they're all Christians as well. They share a similar idea. And I said to them, look, it's going to be dangerous. I have no idea what it's actually going to be like. Like I went first in January with another guy and I went there basically just
to check it out.
Because I knew we only had 3 months. 90 days is not a long time.
I just have to pause. Not only did you pay for your own ticket, but you were willing to leave your job here in Australia and go to Israel for 3 months.
Yeah, well,
I'm
I
just
went for
adding
money
to
more than
your-
3 months. Yeah, but
Yeah,
anyway,
but
I
I'm
started
saying
with
in the
3 months.
beginning, I'm
Yeah,
just trying to show how insane you are in the best
yeah.
way possible.
It's
I mean, I'm giving you
yeah.
compliments over here. Do you realize how incredible that is?
No,
Okay,
it
well,
was.
I'm just telling you.
So I went to Israel. The timeline is like this. I contacted this lady. She ended up saying, "Hey, you know what? There's this guy in Kibbutz Erez that's he can help you with all these things." And I had questions about accommodation. I had questions about food, transport, things like that.
Of course.
Because I didn't know, I didn't even know how to get from the airport we were going to land in. And I said I needed help with those things. She said, yeah, there's this guy. And so I contacted him, and we talked on the phone for a bit. And he said, so when are you going to come? And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll come first because I plan on hopefully bringing some guys with me. But to do that, I'm only going to be there. We're on tourist visas, which only last for 90 days. So I want to get the maximum amount of impact in those 90 days. So I want to come formulate a plan first before I bring these guys over because we don't want to be standing around doing nothing. And so I went in January the 23rd, I think. So I went 23rd, came back. I left Israel on the 26th, Australia Day. We didn't actually sit down and talk the first day because he was busy. There wasn't many people in the kibbutz. There was only a few dozen because the kibbutz was still evacuated. And so then
You slept in the kibbutz.
Yeah. No, I've lived in the kibbutz the whole time.
And they had accommodation for you guys?
At the time, yes. So at the time they did because the place was empty.
Was Kibbutz Erez, was it destroyed?
Okay, so this is all part of my speech.
Tell us.
Because these are
Yeah.
interesting questions because
Yeah.
my original plan was to actually go to Kibbutz Beri or Nir Oz.
Yeah.
They were the things that, went in my head because that's what I'd seen. So I thought I'll go there. But in the end, I ended up in Kibbutz Erez. I got there and we had a chat on the following day. I did a couple of days' work with the builder that was there. And there was another guy with me who I brought with me from Australia. We sat down, we formulated a plan. We worked out what the needs of the kibbutz were, what tools they had. I originally got told, we got all the tools you need. When I got there, there was no tools at all. So I ended up buying tools in Australia and I brought them with me. And then I sent money through JNF for the rest of the tools that I needed over there. So I tools when I went back the second time. And those 3 days made a plan of how we could make what needed to be done. And the reason I stayed in Erez was because these other kibbutzim didn't have a rebuild plan. They didn't have a rebuild plan because at the time it was too early. And in some kibbutzim, they still don't have a return plan. Like Kibbutz Nahal Oz, where we're working right now, and we're not working there today because the bombings could be rockets, or
probably
mortars.
there will be, unfortunately, but yeah.
And so in this kibbutz, they don't actually have a return plan because the kibbutz is all over the place. Some people are still in Gaza. What do you do with people who've died? There's a lot of issues. So
and trauma.
Well, what happens is the kibbutz is not like a city. People have to come back together. For instance, now in Kibbutz Nahal Oz, there's only 4 kids. Those 4 kids have got to catch a bus, and so a van comes and picks them up to take them to school. But you've got to understand they can't open the children's houses. I don't know if people who listen to this know how kibbutz work. The kibbutz works on a communal function. So just for instance, everybody knows what a variety store is. They call it a migvan. And you could imagine that if there's not enough people in the kibbutz to open the store, then you won't open it, right? So you've got to have enough people come back at once to need that. But then you've got to have those facilities in place so that when people come back, it's there to use. So it is difficult. You can't just have like dribs and drabs come back. The kibbutz has to actually agree to come back.
Either or
it doesn't really work. It doesn't work as a kibbutz. So it's a difficult thing. So they had an issue at the time, and still do, where they didn't have a rebuild plan. So I couldn't actually work in those kibbutzim at the time. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to stay in Erez. After talking to this guy, I realized the kibbutz is planning on coming back in the future at some stage. What we can do is help the kibbutz be better and, more vibrant and not feel like it's been neglected and left dead for 10 months. That's how long they were evacuated. It got struck by, I think, at least one RPG and also hand grenades. There was a couple of buildings that got hit in the
needed to be
neighborhood.
renovated.
Yeah, I actually had nothing to do with those renovations. There was damage caused by, and again, I'm going to say this right. The security team did an amazing job. But the IDF did actually use it as a base for a while too, so there was also a bit of wear and tear from the IDF, but also neglect. I don't know if you understand, and people should understand this, but when I went to Nahal Oz, what happened was I was speaking to one of the guys who's part of the rehabilitation program there. He said when the kibbutz was evacuated, the doors were left open everything was left open. And so when they came back, it was like everything had moved in. You know, the way it is, if you just leave your door open, everything moves in, all the animals, and the place becomes very neglected if it's not, at least shut. And so he said, they didn't even shut the doors when they left, which is understandable, by the way. But so there's a lot of damage just from that.
Yeah.
But the idea wasn't
damage.
necessarily about, and again, I have to keep answering this question because people are like, how damaged was Erez? It wasn't as damaged as, like, I've been to a number of the other kibbutzim that are really damaged, right? Near Oz is really damaged. There's firebombed houses, whole rows of them. But the plan wasn't necessarily to rebuild these sorts of things. My plan changed to be more along the lines of revitalizing the kibbutz so that when the kibbutz could come back, they would feel like coming home. Does that make sense?
Makes complete sense.
And so the idea is they could have actually returned to the old children's houses, but we went in there and renovated them so that so people felt like bringing their kids back.
I didn't
And
know
it's a
that
big
they
thing.
that they still have children's houses in kibbutzim. That used to be back in the day, but I thought now children live with their families.
They do live with their families, but the children's houses are used for before and after work. So what happens is the kindergartens, the parents will drop their kids off in the young children's houses and then go to work and then pick them up in the afternoon. The older children will go to school in the morning, but in the afternoon there's quite a number of hours where they will be in the children's houses, and it's educational. It's not just sitting there doing nothing.
So it's like a kindergarten / after school
program. Yeah, and
Gotcha,
so all the houses, the children's houses, are still very necessary for the kibbutzim.
Yeah, for sure.
Like very necessary. In fact, parents wouldn't come back if they couldn't use them. So that's why they were vital actually for the coming back. And also parents, you want the best for your kids. You don't want to just put them in a box somewhere and that sort of thing. And so revitalizing the children's houses was actually a very important move. But there was a whole heap of other projects that we did as well. A lot of the projects we do are like commercial projects for the kibbutz, because the concept is that for the kibbutz to actually thrive and move forward, they need to have a certain amount of income, because they have expenses and stuff like that. So they need to generate some money. And the idea is to help the kibbutz by, we built a lot of things where businesses from outside the kibbutz could come and move into those spaces, and the kibbutz collected an income and that sort of stuff. So the idea was to create revenue generating spaces for the kibbutz, because it helps the kibbutz in the long term, if you understand. It provides resilience. So a lot of people, they can look at it like, oh, well, you didn't help individual. We did a lot of individual stuff. No, it's interesting because people do actually point to like, oh, and you can tell they do because they ask the question. And then it can sound strange. Like, why are you renovating a space for a company to come and rent inside the kibbutz? And that's the reason why. The reason is because the kibbutz needs those things for its future.
And yeah, exactly. So you come to Israel for 3 months.
Yep.
Then your visa expires.
Yep.
So you go back to Australia.
No, so I went to Africa.
Tell us the storyline.
I'll give you the storyline.
Yeah.
Briefly. So 3 days. I stayed there for 3 days. And in March, I came back and stayed for 3 months. So it was about a month later, because it was the 26th of January. I came back the 6th of March. So I basically missed the month of February.
Was it worth going all the way to Israel for 3 days?
It was. For us to make maximum impact, which I believe we did, is by planning thoroughly. And you can only plan thoroughly if you go there and see. You can't really do it over the telephone. I couldn't anyway. So it was far worth it, actually. And
then when you went back for 3 months, that was also self-funded?
Of course. And not only that, I also built in part of my plan is that I was going to have a rotating team there, because I knew that we couldn't always be there because of visa limitations. So what I did was I actually sent money through JNF to build a club for my guys, so I could have a rotating team. So when other guys left, I could bring other guys there. And so what I did was I actually built a space there, which I asked the kibbutz. I said, look, have you got like a corner that's completely dilapidated, falling to bits, about to die? I said, I'll renovate it. I'll put basically it's like a club. It's not I don't know how they call it.
A man's cave.
No, not even. It was funny because we had an American team there and they had the same thing, but they used a facility by the kibbutz. And I saw ahead. I thought, well, the kibbutz is going to come back eventually, and they're going to want this space back, because you're either in a children's house or you're in a youth club somewhere or something like this. So looking ahead, you could see that it was only a matter of time, because you wanted the kibbutz to come back. That was the whole purpose of doing it. that eventually the kibbutz would say, we need that space for the youth or something like that.
You built a space casually.
Build a space, yeah. We were the builders. I'm a builder.
So this is when you went for the 3 months.
For the 3 months. I went with 5 other guys.
Okay, so you guys were already a bit of a crew.
Yeah. So all these guys worked for me before. One of them was my son.
Wow.
So, and that's the only time I felt like a bad parent. Actually, it's not, but I did feel like a bad parent because he was 14 at the time, turned 15 in Israel. He just turned 16. And when I first went there, I did actually ask, I said, look, it's going to be dangerous and that sort of stuff. I don't think his mum was completely happy with it, but she was okay with it. Then when I got there, a month later or half a month later, there was the missile strike from Iran.
Yeah.
And now that day, I came and woke him up and I said, you got to go to the bomb shelter. You got to stay in there. And he was like dazed and everything, went to the bomb shelter and went to bed. I didn't actually tell him why. And then we got told missiles are going to start entering Israel at 2 o'clock in the morning. So we thought, okay, well, the world's going to end. Let's just go out and watch the fireworks, which is what we did. We just went outside and waited for the fireworks to start. We didn't actually see many. The second one was worse. The next morning I said to him, do you want to go home? Because I would feel like a bad parent if he died in that particular situation without giving him a choice, at least, of if he wanted to go home or not. And he said, no, he's fine. He fully understood. I said, by that time in the morning, he fully understood what had happened. We'd already witnessed Iron Dome missile interceptions many times because where we are in Erez, we're in the middle. We don't get a lot over the top of us, but we see a lot of Iron Dome rockets going towards Sderot and Ashkelon, and we've seen heaps of them, especially when we're there in the start. So there were 6 of us in total. We did a number of projects. Then we also built our a club. Mm-hmm. We call it Down Under. It's called the Down Under.
Well, we are from Down Under.
We are from Down Under.
Yeah,
It was chosen by one of the kibbutzniks, actually. We were trying to think of what to call it. Really, all it is a space because you need it. Even though we live in different units in the kibbutz, like there'll be 2 or 3 guys in a unit, sort of thing, and it's a small space, smaller than this room, and you'll have 3 guys. But because it's a kibbutz, there's nothing really for cooking and things like that. And for 5 days in the week, we could get takeaway meals. The dining room wasn't functional, but they had meals brought in. They look army style in the plastic packets and everything. And so we ate from those. But then on the weekends and nights and mornings, you have to eat somewhere.
Of course.
And so you can't do that in the units because the units are all designed for around the old style of kibbutzim living. So they don't have really space for that. They have a sink and a table space, which is like this wide, really only for a jug so you can have coffee. Like the units are designed so you have to eat at the dining room, right? And so we had this American team there, and they had typical American team. They said their place was called. When we got there, they were there.
Were they from Texas, by the way?
Some of them.
I'm getting like down south vibes. Those devout Christians who are like coming to help Israel.
Yeah. They only had a few Jewish people. Most of them were all Christian people, and they were there before us. And they were called FIRM, which is Fellowship of Israel-Related Ministries. They're actually quite a big organisation. They've donated a lot of money to Israel, and like huge, actually, much bigger than. Anyway, they were there, and they called their place the command centre. And really, what it is you need a place where, because you're split up over the kibbutz, somewhere where you can come in the morning, you can have coffee, you can get a job, or because there's usually an organiser, and delegate.
This is what we're doing.
Exactly.
And you need it.
Yeah, and so that's what I built basically. I've got an office there. There's another office space, storeroom. We've got a kitchenette there. We've got a table there, so you can have coffee. You can have dinner there. You can have breakfast there. You usually have lunch in the dining room, but you only have 1 meal a day in the dining room, and then you take food away from that and then heat it up at night and eat it. But we eat it at our club, and so that's what we did. So after 3 months, we all left. I had a new team of 5 guys come. I still managed all the jobs. So it's my project. So when I bring guys over, I'm still like right now I'm in Australia, but I'm working on 3 different projects as we speak. And so every morning and every night, actually, sometimes it's terrible. There are
time zones.
Yeah, the time zone difference is a little bit hard. So you do get calls at funny hours and stuff like that. And there's always things like we're renovating this thing, and I got, I get questions like, if we pull all this out, is the building going to fall down?
How have you found so many guys who are happy to go to Israel? Are they all from Cairns? Or
They're not all from
Australia?
Cairns. They're not all from Cairns, but they're all close friends of mine.
Are they all Christian background?
They're all Christian, except for this
Awesome.
one guy who stayed with us for 3 months. Finn from Melbourne. He's Jewish, and he's a rare case, but he fit in like crazy with us. He's like he was one of our crew. He came over specifically to join our crew. And it's a beautiful story. I hope to see him because he only finished his 3 months half a month ago, and he's in Melbourne again. And I'm hopefully going to go and see him.
Has
next week or
Israel
week
not
after.
given you guys longer visas? Like you're literally building the kibbutzim and renovating.
I got so much trouble getting my visa. I've got a guy in the kibbutz the same guy, my contact. He's a really, really great guy. He even went to Jerusalem yesterday to talk to the Minister of Foreign Trade and this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And he's been there so many times. And like you said before, so many people, you weren't talking about this specifically, but it applies. So many people say they're going to help, and you never see them. So many people, that's just the way it is. I ended up getting a volunteer visa, and I had struggled to get it. I had to, I went everywhere to get it. I had to drive. So to get it, I flew from North Queensland to Sydney, drove from Sydney to Canberra, sat for an interview, and this was
Look what a saint you are.
And that's what. And it took me 4 days and thousands of kilometers of travel just to get this B4 visa.
Oh my
They
Lord.
gave it to me for 3 months and then extended it for a year. So I have a year one, but all the rest of my guys, no, they're going to run out of visas in 3 months and then leave. Some of the guys, I asked if they wanted to stay longer. They did, and so they flew out to Cyprus. I'd fly them to Cyprus and then fly them back again. We had issues with one of the guys who I wanted him to stay, and he flew back in, and when he flew back in, they said, "Look, you've done this twice before. You can't come in anymore."
Aww.
And he's like, "Well," and he got the contact to ring him up. I said, "Look, what are you doing? Like these guys have been helping us for so long now." They said, "Okay, we'll give him a week to come in and get his stuff and leave." I'm like, honestly, they're just not helpful. Interestingly, though, before I left the first time, I talked to Sarah from JNF, and I said, "Sarah, you know what you could do? You could help me."
So is JNF now, I'm assuming, are they the ones who are financially helping you guys?
No. So they have never financially helped me at all. They have actually helped me. I've sent funds through JNF. And to be fair, Kakal, depending on the project, Kakal has matched that. Depending on if the project fitted their criteria. But I've never actually received funding. Interestingly, this morning I actually sent information to JNF to ask for funding. It's the first time I've actually asked them for funding. But
you need a
I don't know, but I've had some great. Actually, that's the first time I was sent. But to be actually even more fair, there's another JNF representative from Western Australia. His name's Gavin Gotkis, I think, and he actually came to the kibbutz and did a couple of days' work with our guys, with my team, when I was there, and he's actually trying to help me raise some funds for some of the projects we're doing.
Well, if you have a link, we'll put it in the show notes so people can donate. If
I don't have anything at the moment, but he's raised. I don't know. He's doing something anyway, and I'm going to see him next week.
Well, I mean, if people want to give, they'll just contact me, and I'll hook them up with you, and that's it. So then, how have you been? Like, this is your company. How are you making a living, or you're not?
I am making a living. It's difficult. I'd say to everyone, and again, I don't know why this issue is most important, because at the end of the day, I'm going to stop when I can't. That's what I said to people. I will only go as far as I can go.
Okay, fine.
I have a building company in Australia. I do build still in Australia, so I've got guys who are building in Australia. And that's one of the reasons why I had to return this time, is because, you do have to keep track of things on the ground. And obviously in Australia, there's legalities to do with council and stuff like that as well.
Okay,
a lot of stuff you can do online now, which is really nice because you don't need to be in the country, but you still have things.
You got to be on the ground.
So I've been in and out of the country 4 or 5 times out of Israel. Like I stayed, again, March, I went 3 months. I went to Africa for a month, went back to Israel for 2 months, went to Australia for 2.5 months, went back to Israel again. My last stay's been 5 months in Israel, so I just came back after 5 months. Because I was on a tourist one and then I rolled over onto a volunteer one, I have until December this year on my visa, and it's a multiple entry, so I can breathe. now I can breathe. None of the rest of my guys can though. They will all be in and out. It's funny because it depends on who you get at the counter.
Yes,
because
it does.
one of our guys, he stayed there 9 months and 3 times through. And this guy who got pulled up, he got quoted the whole law and said, "No, you can only do this so many days." He said, "Look, we had a guy come in here the other." He said, "No, you can only have the visa twice, so you can come in for 10 days, get your gear and leave." It's a shame because if we could get other people there, it would be beneficial. And that's one of the things which I asked Gavin from JNF Western Australia. I said, honestly, if people do want to help, they could fly one of my guys there and we'll work. Because if people can't go themselves, if you can support someone who can go there and do building work, you'll do a lot of good. There's a specific project that I'm working on in Kibbutz Erez, and it's a project which I'm funding myself. I put the money into it. I wanted to build a pavilion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what a pavilion is.
That's good. Israelis don't. There must be a different word. So I'm building a pavilion in the garden. There's a garden there called Gun Erez. And the pavilion was to try and bring some life into the cultural aspect. Not that there isn't, but it's a really nice space in the garden where you could do bar mitzvahs, weddings, functions, things like this, cultural events in the kibbutz. And so I had this idea. I drew it up 3D. And I sent the money for it. So like I said, I've funded it. The problem is that I didn't actually know how expensive the windows at the doors were. Much more expensive than what I imagined at the time. So when I budgeted it for it, it was way too expensive. So I just asked JNF, I said, look, if there's a possibility, I would like to know if someone can help me with that.
Amazing.
And I expect a no, but you can only ask.
My mum always says it's worth it to ask. The worst people can say is no.
Yeah.
But at least you know you've tried.
Yep. Hopefully we'll see what happens.
And have you fallen in love with Israel?
I love Israel. I truly do. And like I said the other night, and I say it again and again, it does feel like home, to be honest.
Really?
It really
Even
does.
all the craziness and
I love
the
Israeli
mentality.
Driving is nuts. It's crazy. Like they want to kill you on the road.
Yeah.
It's funny because people talk about the dangers in Australia. I say, honestly, the driving in Israel on the road is far more dangerous. You will die of a car accident in Israel for sure. Like you won't even die of rockets. You'll die of a car accident. Yeah. It's crazy. And the people, okay, I'm going to get in trouble now, but a lot of the people are very rude. They don't have 100%. Very good manners. They don't say thank you. They don't say please. And then they say, oh, you Aussies are so polite. It's rude. Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah, I know. They're like, get annoyed at your politeness. And I'm like, are we living on the same planet?
Yeah. But it's a beautiful, the kibbutzniks are beautiful people.
Yeah, they are.
They really are beautiful people. I haven't had a lot to do with many other people in Israel because I didn't spend much time traveling or anything like that. So I can only really talk about the kibbutzniks. Beautiful place.
And do you see yourself now continuing this work for a good while or just for the time being until things settle and then... Or you don't know?
I don't know. And the reason why I set up this Down Under club thing, the reason why I originally thought this is going to be an ongoing thing for a long time. And so I said to the guy, my contact, I said, look, I want to be here indefinitely, really, because looking forward, there's so much need. If people go, oh, you've done so much. And it's not true. I mean, I know in a philanthropic way it is, I suppose you've done so much, but really you haven't. You look at the need that's there, It's crazy. Like there's far more need than could be easily foreseen for many years to come. Whether or not I stay there and do that or not, I don't know, but I do know there's a lot of need there.
And your son, is he there now by himself? Is his 3 months nearly up?
His 3 months will be nearly up when I'm back. Maybe a couple of weeks after I get back, his 3 months will be up. Then he'll come back. So he was supposed to be in Nahaloz today, and he's not in Nahaloz because there's
the rockets
all-out war again, and we're sent news saying be ready to run to your bomb shelters today because there's going to be rockets flying. Just a few rockets, they say. Just a few.
And my last question for you is, I'm assuming that the people that you surround yourself are supportive, but I'm curious to know, because you're a non-Jewish Aussie, have you received a lot of hate for what you're doing, or have people been questioning you? Are people like, why would you go to this occupational country? I
do have friends who don't support what I'm doing, yeah.
Are they still your friends?
Not the Muslim ones.
Oh, okay.
Because, they have a problem admitting the truth.
So you mean you've
What I
lost
mean
some
what I mean
mates.
is that, you know, when you say to a Muslim person, what happened on October 7 was wrong, they say, yeah, it was. This is in Australia, not in Israel. They say, yeah, it was, but. And they go, but. And it doesn't matter what but is after that. And I say, there is no but after that. You can't, there is no way you can justify the killing of children. There's no way you can justify the killing of women. And I would say innocent women, because there are some women who aren't innocent. It's funny because people do confuse that nowadays.
I know, they love saying the women and children. Women can be vicious, but
there's plenty of women in Israeli prisons for stabbing Israelis. You know, there's plenty of Palestinian
Totally.
Arab women who are bombers and stabbers and stuff like that. So I think it's important to remember that just saying women and children doesn't just like, it's not like all women are innocent. No offense to you, but
I'm not offended. I agree with you. Women
in this culture in Australia, we're so used to saying
women and children,
and
the
it's
elderly.
like they're innocent all of a sudden. It's like, wait a second, not all women are innocent actually, but all children are innocent. And even if they're not innocent, that doesn't give you a right to kill them. And it's funny because people will have a double standard. Like if you were to execute someone or kill someone who done something wrong, people would say, you're not the judge and you're not the judge and jury and executioner, there's a law, there's a way of doing this. Well, they won't say that about October 7. They'll just say, oh, that's because of what Israel had done and that sort of thing. It's like, so, okay, first of all, I don't agree, but let's pretend Israel did do all those things. Does that really give you a right to go and kill children?
No.
And even innocent people in their homes? Like, I don't think so. No way does that give anyone a right to just kill these people. It's not right in any way. So Muslims have a problem with that. They support one another regardless of whether or not they are right or wrong. And from my perspective, that's wrong. If Christians had done this, I would get up and stand against these people, because that's against my values. Yeah. And you would call them out, you'd condemn them.
And what about your Aussie friends?
They're Aussies, these Muslim guys, they're Aussies. But also, I haven't lost any friends, but I know friends who I don't talk to so much anymore. I'm not a social media person, so I can't say that people stop me from their social media contacts, but I don't hear from them anymore. And I do know that some of my friends don't support Israel, and so I wouldn't call them pro-Palestinian, but they are the people who argue for the Palestinian cause. They're the sort of people who say, well, if you were backed into a corner, what would you do? You know where that goes.
Yes, I do.
And so they're the sort of people who don't support me. And to be honest, I don't really care, because like I said, it's, for me, what's right is right. And regardless of whether or not October 7 happened to Jewish people or not, those people were injured. Those people were murdered. Those people were raped and tortured. Those people had their children taken from them. And they're people. They're just people. And honestly, like I said, if that happened to me, I would hope someone would come to help me, So that's why I think, for me, I would do the same.
Wow. Well,
So,
Asaph, you are a true legend.
I don't think so, but thank you.
You're a righteous Gentile. Truly, we're so blessed to have you. I know that I'm Australian, but for me,
I'm Australian too.
Yeah. But for me, as a Jew, Israel is my homeland. I feel so intrinsically connected, because Judaism, Zionism, for me, it's one and the same. And so I, as a Jew, want to thank you for going and for helping rebuild my home. We need people like you in the world. And if only there were more Asaphs.
There's a funny thing. So many Jewish people like that. You meet them and they say, thank you for... And I'm like, I didn't help you. I helped other people.
No.
And they're like, no, you helped me.
You helped me, because
it's a funny concept, to be honest.
It is a funny concept, because for me, my name is Chavi Israel. I mean, it's a very Jewish name. But people don't understand that my Jewish identity means everything to me. My identity is my Jewish identity. I am a Jew, and the Jewish people are my brothers and sisters. And we really feel that connection, that it's hard probably for other people to understand. I realize that. But
it's hard for people to understand. It's hard for me to understand why you would thank me for helping them. And that's the funny thing, because people go, oh, thank you, thank you for coming to Israel and helping and that sort of stuff. And it's like, again, I don't know you, but okay, and they weren't even affected really by that. But I do understand it.
You're helping
it's
me.
Interesting. It's interesting when you hear it.
Well, you're helping me and my people.
Yeah.
So thank you. Really.
My pleasure. Like I said, I've never thought that this would happen. I went to Israel just to work and help. I didn't realize it was so interesting for Jewish people, again, for me, I like the Jewish people. I love the Jewish people. I do.
Mm.
But the real reason why I went was not because you were Jewish. It was
No.
because you were
Morality.
exactly.
That's it.
It was the moral right thing to do. Yeah, and that's why.
Look at you, true upstander, Asaph. Thank you.